Hey, everybody, welcome back to Covestic CMDB chat, ITOM chat. As usual, I'm Scott Trumbull, the Covestic director of the ITX technology workflow practice. If you've been following us along, we've been going through some sessions now. We've talked about tools and features related to measuring our CMDB health and some of the new tools and features related to that. And we're started to look at CSDM and some of the CSDM best practices. Today, we have a special guest with us, and we'll meet him in just a second. That's Scott Robinson, and he's our Director of Solution Consulting. And Scott is particularly passionate about and wanted to come in and do a session to talk about certificate management and this great certificate management program that's available within ServiceNow. If you have any of the ITOM subscription, this is something you have, and people just aren't leveraging it. So not to steal his thunder, but Scott's excited about this. I wanted to come in and talk to us about it today. So on that note, I'll be quiet and let other Scott Robinson, talk about certificate management and ServiceNow.
All right. Thank you. As Scott mentioned, I am the other Scott to the Scott duo today. I'm Scott Robinson. And Scott hit it right about on the head. I'm very passionate about certificate management. I actually had a sysadmin background when I started off in consulting and doing IT work. And one of the things that I found as a problem was always keeping up with expiring certificates and always dealing with the problems that occur when a certificate actually expires. So I found it very interesting that ServiceNow actually purchased and brought in a certificate management solution into the platform all the way back in March of 2020. And I still find customers today that don't know that this product exists and don't understand just how much it's grown over the last several years to where it became a solution to where you could centralize your management of certificates all the way to now a solution where you can automate the renewal and management of certificates. So that's the intent of what I plan to talk to today. So just starting off with a couple of things as far as like, what's the challenge we're facing here? And the big challenges that we have are just the sheer number of certificates that we're dealing with across business units and across solutions that we have. The big ticket items here is we have an increasing amount, ever increasing amount of SaaS software that we're using, Azure infrastructure that we're using, and all of this stuff needs to be secure. So the number of certificates that the average organization is using today continues to grow. Trying to do that process via manual tracking in spreadsheets is almost certainly going to end up being error prone to being able to manage. There's always something that gets forgotten. And then you unfortunately get the red fire alarm that comes across when something critical goes down, that goes down basically for no other reason than its certificate expired. And then that process up to this point has been very manual to go in, check what it had, check what all of it needed as far as its additional names, get the certificate from the certificate provider, bring it back to said service, and then reinstalling it and then turning the service back up, where there's got to be a better way. So I'm very happy to talk about like, what are we getting here as far as the benefits out of it? So the number one that I talked about is looking at outages from expired certificates. So if I can use a tool that's port-based, URL-based, even CA-based, so I can actually look at certificates, and you can see down at the very bottom in my little asterisk that they support DigiCert, Intrust, GoDaddy, Sectigo, and Microsoft as CA authorities. So I can actually look directly at the CA, look at accounts, and pull a list, as well as doing the normal sort of day-to-day what Discovery does of looking across the environment and finding certificates. I can populate that CMDB information and align it to the resources that those certificates are on. And now I can also do standardized forms with automatic renewal tasks to be able to automate the renewal process for all of these certificates and manage it in one spot. sort of talking back to the sort of the CMDB as the centralized heart of everything in your organization, being able to look at it CMDB and say, show me all my certificates, or having a dashboard to say, show me all my certificates that are going to expire in the next 60 days would have been hugely helpful for me if I was back in the day of doing systems administration, because like that gives me the ability to in one spot see everything that's going on. And then the proactive renewal alerts basically is automatically assigning me tasks, looking at that CMDB and saying, okay, what's coming up in the next 60 days so that I'm in front of it, so that we get away from outages, we maintain that security posture that we're looking for. And then finally, we have a standardized experience for certificates from one to the other, instead of everything being sort of done manually. And again, the more you do manual, the more errors you have the opportunity to introduce into your overall process. So overall understanding to your business context expands a little bit upon this as well, so that you can understand where where certificates lie inside of your organization, to where you have the ability to now see, as it relates to service maps, as it relates to business services, where are these certificates, so that if something did go down, now I'm looking at it and going, okay, what does it give me as far as the value against, or what does it give me as far as the outage impact? What does it give me as far as all of the other services affected? Because oftentimes we see services that are running on things like load balancers, that if I lose a certificate there, all of a sudden now it's just not one service that's impacted, it's multiple. So being able to clearly delineate when something does happen, what's the context? And then finally, the biggest ticket here is going through and taking something that was a manual, extremely drawn out process and turning it into something that is, one, consistent, but two, I can start doing automation. If you're using those certificates, I can actually, in some cases, go through and do automation from start to finish. So they've started with all of the certificate authorities as far as pulling information that we talked about earlier. What they did with with this newer version is, if you're using DigiCert as your certificate provider, it can actually automate the entire request from front to back. So as that 60-day renewal window comes up, it automatically starts a workflow. It goes through the routing process. It goes and says, okay, hey, Scott Trumbull, I noticed the certificate you had expired is coming up. Do you approve us to renew this certificate? You sit there and say, yes, I do, or no, I don't, inside of the process. And then if I do, it goes through and automatically goes and renews that process, or gets a new one, or revokes it, creates the change request. So now we're even introducing governance into the overall certificate management lifecycle. So now I'm doing change requests to say, okay, I'm changing out these certificates. Granted, not a lot of impact as far as the change, but it's still another added aspect to governance to be able to say, I've got this renewal activity that I am touching a piece of production gear. I want to track that I made a change to it. And then with the automation that's provided by it, the certificate itself is even stored in the CMDB and the status is updated. So now I'm reducing human error, I'm reducing the amount of time that's spent on certificate management, and I'm overall increasing the efficiency, because if I can take something that normally takes myself or whatnot, going on to a certificate management site, going through and doing the renewal, pulling the key down, putting it onto the machine, going through all that process and making it end-to-end automated, I've now saved hours, which now equates back to money being saved back to an organization. And what we hit on the point at the very beginning is ITOM has this feature that's embedded inside of the visibility and above packages. So in almost every scenario, if you have an ITOM SKU, you already own this. So this is something that you can take advantage of pretty quickly and get a lot of value out of, and potentially decrease the overall amount of interruptions and outages you have as it relates to certificates. So I'll end with saying, if you want a demo of what this looks like, or what the process looks like inside of ServiceNow, I'd be happy to sit down and talk to you guys, go through a demo, walk through it, talk with myself and Scott Trumbull, on what this would cost to implement in your environment. I appreciate the time that you guys have had to allow me to speak today. Thank you.
Scott, thanks a lot. And I know you're excited as somebody who's had in a previous career had to deal with those outages of missed certificate renewals, are really excited about that automated process to renew them. What I think is important, other than helping customers get ROI out of their ServiceNow instance, right? Use what you're already paying for to get more return on that. But I'm excited. I totally believe, I'm totally on board. Getting that to be that single pane of glass for your entire IT infrastructure, your entire IT environment. One more thing that you can show holistically. You mentioned how it shows in the business map. I can not only see that this certificate is expiring, I can see that this certificate expiring is going to affect, my being able to take orders or being able to log into SAP, or what's affected by it in those business service maps. I'm excited about that. And I'm excited. I like the idea of, all this group's work in one place, whether they're working on an incident or they have these certificates that they have to go work on. Everybody's work is all in one place, and I can see it holistically and measure it holistically. Yeah. So those are the areas where I get passionate about, but it's an important tool that a lot of people have in their toolbox, and like you said, they're not using. So I appreciate everybody coming in, spending a little time with us today. If you like this, be sure to check out some of our other sessions earlier where we talked about some other tools and features dealing with the CMDB and visibility into that. And coming up, we're going to be talking about some more CSDM implementation and other things in future sessions. So if you enjoyed this, be sure and stop back in and check out some of our other sessions. If not, we will catch you later on the next session on your same ITOM time, same ITOM channel.